Okay, so now what I'd like to do is just actually talk a little bit about, let's talk about nominal GDP. So nominal and real GDP. If I go type in GDP in the Fred website, this actually website is the best website I can show you for just finding all of macroeconomic statistics. And the best way to reach it is just to go to Google and type in Fred. So from this website, you can find all kinds of real-time data on the macroeconomy. It's a great website. So go ahead and type in GDP, and you can see we have gross domestic product. There's also real gross domestic product. So what are these things? Well, again, remember, we added up to get gross domestic product. Remember, that's the market value of all goods produced in a certain time period in a certain geography, okay? And it's final goods production. So what we have is we have market values. Market values are going to be what we'd actually define to be a nominal GDP. Okay, that's what we're talking about. Adding up all those different market values, right? What are market values? Remember, the market values are simply prices of things times quantities of things. Okay, prices times quantities. So remember, what we're interested in is the real production. The real production being quantities. So what we have here is actually Q is going to stand for real GDP. Okay. And so that looks like a GPP. Sorry about my writing there. So GDP. So we have nominal GDP is equal to the price times real GDP. Okay. We're interested in that real Q, that real quantity. So another way to write this is that look, if I go nominal is equal to price times real, I'll just write it like that. I'm changing notation Q to R, and I'm just giving this an N, okay, just this equation rewritten. So we can also rewrite this and just play with this equation. I mean, this is real simple. I could just find out real GDP is just equal to the nominal divided by the price level, okay, just simple like that. And for this reason, actually, I got to say this. This is why when I do kind of data work, I like to keep my price levels in terms of decimals, not in terms of whole numbers like you have in Pearson. If you keep them in decimals, you can actually use this equation on real data. Pretty straightforward. I'll show you maybe how to do that in just a couple seconds. Now, you can rewrite this equation in all kinds of different ways. I think your book has it maybe something like this, like nominal is equal to the price deflator times real. Again, prices, we're going to actually, where the price here is going to be the GDP deflator. Okay, it's the price deflator. It's the price level. Oops, there we go. So that's kind of the backdrop here, and you can use this equation in a lot of ways. Maybe so they have real gross domestic product here. They also have nominal. If you just didn't quite, um, you know, you didn't see that, and you just looked at gross domestic product, this would be what we actually have as a picture. Hey, it looks pretty good. We have this nice. You notice the long kind of sloping upward trend. That's the growth in this economy. You'll notice also in this graph, I'll show you. So first off, I should say, when I introduce a graph, this is gross domestic product on the blue line in billions of dollars on the y-axis from 1947 up until when was the last metric on Q1 of 24. So this shows you quite a history. And you'll see that there are shaded bars on this plot. What those are is actually those are recessions. Those are U.S. recessions, and we'll talk about what a recession means before. But you'll see that there's a decline in GDP or contraction of production, real production that happens during recessions, and so that's what we have here. Okay, that's kind of what we have. Now let's go back and again get to the main thing. Let's say I want to actually look. I have nominal GDP. I want to go get real GDP. Well, you can actually go edit graph and then just let's add a line or actually edit line. How about I edit line and let's grab a deflator. What if I wrote, so I'm going to add GDP deflator, implicit, there's my implicit price deflator. I can go ahead and add that. Okay, so now this is actually, so what do we have here? What we have here in the Fred is you'll have Series A, which is gross domestic product. Remember, that is nominal. And we have B, which is the price deflator. So we can actually write little formulas and just reference these series as A and B. So let's just go A divided by B. Go ahead and apply it. And that's our, now this is kind of interesting. Remember when we looked back at just nominal, it looked like I remember that it looked like there was actually quite a lot of growth that happened after COVID. But what we see is actually that that growth line is not so pronounced. In case you forgot, let's just go ahead and add a line, and I'll just go back and add GDP. I'll add nominal GDP back to this. Oh man, it put it like I'm gonna put it way. So the problem we have now is that there is just a main huge difference between these two lines. Okay, so how are we going to do that? Well, let's go ahead and format the lines. I'll put one of them on the right axis. There we go. That looks a lot better. Oh, and another thing is I'm looking at the line. Why did it come down so much? Look at the values of my real GDP calculation. The reason why is I think that they may have the values in whole numbers. That's probably what it is. So I probably need to multiply that by 100, I think, to make those come out equal. Let's go ahead and edit the graph. I'll go ahead and correct this real quick. I'll edit line 1, and I'll go ahead and just times this thing by 100. Most times, actually, I work with price deflators. I actually don't end up with whole numbers like this. That should be better. Okay, now those axes are looking a lot closer to each other. I could probably get rid of the dual axes now. Yeah, there we go. There we go. That looks better. So let's see here. So we have nominal GDP in the red, real GDP in the blue. And again, if you look at just nominal, looks like we are going crazy off the growth charts. But as you probably all are very much aware, we have had inflation. So a lot of those changes in nominal GDP are being price driven. Again, why you need to deflate your numbers so you can actually get a real idea about what's actually happening. Now, there's another limitation actually in this kind of macroeconomic approach. One of the biggest limitations is that we are just looking at national statistics. There is a lot of individual different stories going on within an economy. Okay, for example, you have different geographies. Okay, whether you're in California or maybe you're in different state or even within California or South Carolina, you have different parts of the states that have different industries. Some are more urban, some are more rural, some are based on certain types of industries and are concentrated, and some have different industrial compositions. And then again, think about the different industrial compositions. So people's buying habits change. Also during recessions, there's different types of products that become more common, more popular. So for example, things like fast food or things that are kind of more budget or things that are more value become maybe more in demand, but things that maybe are more luxury or things that have maybe more durable kinds of consumer goods like refrigerators or things that last a long time. Yeah, I could get one of those things, but I've got one and I don't really need it right now. I can wait a little while. Those kind of durable goods, those take bigger hits in recessions. So what I'm trying to get you to think about is that there's a lot of different industrial differences between different types of business cycles or different recessions or expansions that happen both industrially and geographically and within companies. So there's a lot of individual stories, and all of those get swept under the rug when we're looking at these macroeconomic statistics. If you take my in-person or you have any question about how to look a little deeper, I'm very happy to talk about that. I think that's where a lot of the interesting stories in economics actually are in more the micro side of things. Now, microeconomics, I got to say, in college, unfortunately, it's more theoretical. Still, there's good foundations there. I'm not going to discourage you, but the things that I'm really kind of interested in are the industrial organizations of the macroeconomy. That's interesting to me. Macro statistics, you take on it's, again, just take it for what it is. And I'm saying this why? Because every time that you look at a metric, you need to understand the strengths, the limitations of that metric, and understand exactly what the heck it's telling you, or else you're actually not getting proper information. Okay, so contextualize metrics, contextualize the measures. Measures are super important. Okay, and that's why we started this whole class looking at measures. With that said, we can also take real GDP and divide it by, say, the number of people. We'll end up with per capita GDP. Think about that. Per capita GDP is going to be a good metric as to roughly about how much sort of goods are actually being produced. That can be actually, so if it's per capita, that means every baby, old person that's like 90 years old, everybody, it kind of gives you an idea as to like what kind of resources are available to these people. You could also divide it by, it doesn't necessarily mean how productive they are, though, does it? Because think about that. GDP per capita, are babies out there working? Do we think babies should be productive? No, that's silly. So, if you're trying to think about how productive a society is, you might actually look at the labor force and actually, instead of per capita, maybe divide GDP by the amount of people in the labor force. That would be a better measure of actual output that labor is producing. So, GDP per capita, if I divide it by the population, that's really more looking at something that is a metric of how much people have in terms of potentially being able to maybe consume, right? So there's two parts of the economy, right? You've got the production side of things, and then there's the allocative side of things. So you make some stuff like, who does it go to? How are we going to split this up? Is it one emperor who gets like everything? We all just like slave to that one person? No, it's not how we have it today. We have a market economy. So the market actually determines how different goods are distributed through the society. And really, GDP per capita is sort of a very loose metric. It's one of the metrics that we're going to use to just talk about, how they can be distributed, or, the level of potential distribution that you have. And we can use that to compare different countries. That's how that would make sense. GDP per capita, sort of looking at income per country. Income is what we're going to be looking at in these next chapters, and that's why we're going to use that metric. Okay, so but just again to contextualize the metrics, and I hope that was helpful. If not, also you can feel free to just play these at fast pace. You can play YouTube videos at fast pace, double pace, or 1.5 pace, whatever you can listen to. Get through them faster. That's another tip. Okay, thanks so much.